Hello everybody, welcome back. My hair is very wet. I don't like people thinking my hair's greasy. This is going to be a different episode. It's not an actual reaction episode, it's a recap. I did say if you've been watching the series so far, along with me, I did say an episode, well, many episodes, that at some point after I'd finished episode 9 of Dark, I was going to go back and watch 1 to 9, try and pick up any things that I'd missed, and oh boy, I have my notes. I realised yesterday I didn't have a notepad, so I went out and brought a brand new writing pad, and I have notes. Look at that disgusting handwriting, guys. I know for a fact that I still have things that I've missed. It's like one person said in the comments as well at some point that they love the audio when somebody walks in. I probably shouldn't actually have the pen because I'm just going to sit and click it the whole time. I know for a fact that audio, I did say I'd try and pay attention to the audio. I didn't write any notes for episode 1 because I'd fairly recently watched episode 1 as well, again. Episode 8, there isn't many notes because I was falling asleep because by this point it was like midnight. So then I watched episode 9 again today. I think if I remember rightly, episode 8 was a 2.5 hour recording session. So I feel like I paid a very much... I can't speak today. This isn't a fancy video, guys. Don't look at the quality, look at the context, because the context is what is the key point of this video. I just want to preface this. Spoilers everywhere. There's not a lot that kind of links back. There's a couple of things that do weirdly link back, like from perspective of knowing, like something will happen in a early episode that then we know the context of because we've seen the future episode. Like, so I don't know what particular episodes, but there are some things in here where at the time I didn't understand something, but then because I'd seen up to episode 9, it got answered for us. So let's just get into this, because the quicker I finish this video, the quicker I can edit episode 9. So episode 2, what is that? What is that handwriting, guys? I honestly can't. And it gets worse because, like I said, I watched this all in one go. So by episode 7, it's virtually illegible. Where was Trant the night Mads went missing? I'm pretty sure that gets explained later on, but as I said, I watched all of this in one go, so my tiredness kind of got the better of me at some points. Another point, Charlotte mentions Mads was found with the 1 pence. I don't think it is a pence, but it was a coin. It was like the coin with the red cord. The bodies from 53 also had them. What is the reason for all of these? And I also want to link that to potentially a question of, in a future episode, we'll get there in a bit, so I am going to probably repeat myself. There was a part where Helge in 53 was supposed to take some coins to Claudia, but then somebody pees on him, quite literally. He meets Ulrich. Ulrich says bite them if they're stronger than you. He was then supposed to take those coins then, and obviously he didn't. What are all these coins? It was Alexander that told Jürgen to have the barrels moved until the police have come and gone. So obviously that's referencing the part where in a certain episode I think they get the search warrant, and then Charlotte's walking through the forest and then finds the cave, goes into the cave, finds the yellow chip on the floor, and at the time in the episode I say, doesn't that look like some of the coating on Jonas's yellow rain jacket thing? Then I thought at the time, wait, actually no, it could be the yellow paint chip off of the barrel. It was confirmed the barrel. This is when I said in one of the reactions, why would the police go to the power plant and request a viewing, and then that will give the power plant time to hide everything, hide the evidence and stuff. This was proof that Alexander had told Jürgen to hide all the barrels and then bring them back, obviously, when the police are gone. The place Helge lives in 1953 is the hotel Regina owns in 2019. So I don't know if that's confirmed, but obviously I did realise then that in the past, in 53, Helge obviously lived at the building where, I think it was a B&B. I don't know what it is in past times, where Bernd, Helge and Helge's mother lived, and then obviously Trant and I can't remember Trant's mother's name, they stayed there. In present day 2019, that's where it's the hotel, that's where Regina is working. I don't know if she owns it. That's where the stranger guy has a room as well. Missed that completely. I wrote down future Jonas, so the guy who's given Jonas the box. I think this is near enough virtually confirmed now that it is Future Jonas, so anytime I mention Future Jonas, that's the character that I'm referencing, just for obviously reference. Future Jonas had the Journey Through Time book in 2019, and I didn't write down then, but I've been thinking since then, this book has done its rounds, because we first saw Helge in 1986 give it to Claudia at the power plant. How did Future Jonas have this book. The man on the TV in the room where Eric is unalive. On the TV, I did notice that the guy who I was just talking about, who created the actual time machine and who wrote the Journey Through Time book, he was on TV, and I only noticed because obviously I'd just seen episode 9 and 8 before. Also, Helge's son is called Peter. It's been doing my head in this entire reaction that I constantly forgot who Helge's son is called. Moving on to episode 3. Helge, who was scrubbing the floor at the plant, mentions to Claudia in 86 that Bernd, his dad, had said that the board had voted unanimously to make her the next person in charge. It was Bernd before, so Bernd is obviously Helge's father. I referenced in one of the early episodes that there was a guy in a wheelchair who took Claudia to the forest and found the cave where you drop down into it. Obviously at the time I missed who he was, but then now that I've seen the future episodes, obviously we realised that Bernd is the guy that is in charge at the power plant, who also built the power plant. Bernd is still alive in 86. I don't know about currently 2019. Helge was the one to give the Journey Through Time book to Claudia in 1986. Pretty sure I've already recapped that. I don't know why I wrote that down again. The guy who wanted to... Oh, this was another big one that I picked up on. The guy who wanted to interview Claudia was Trant, Ulrich's father. At the beginning when I said that I thought there was a guy that was there for a job interview, turns out he was with the press and he wanted to write an interview on Claudia being like potentially the first woman in power. In that sense, it was Trant. Oh, the sheep. Oh god, guys, I had to relive. I completely forgot to mention. I need you all to hit that like button right now, only because I had to relive. Obviously, we had the sheep skull scene that I had to relive in this episode. Later on, I had to relive the birds getting chopped up by the vet. The sheep's ears were burst like the birds and the kids, so they have time travelled. And I'm going to make a note on that now. I did say at one point, obviously we now know that the box that future Jonas has been carrying is a time travel device. And I was saying, how do a load of birds just randomly fly through the cave into a different time? I now believe that when the time travel machine is being used, that's how it captures like the whole entire kind of bubble around the town. Episode 4. Old Helge in the nursing home. He says it has to stop. I said, is someone controlling him? We later learn in episode 9, no it is, and he tells him then he wants to stop. So he said multiple times that he wants to stop. He's being controlled by Noah. This then will lead into a theory that I mentioned later on. This was another one that it was like more of it wasn't a clue, but it was like a Easter egg potentially. When Magnus enters Francesca's class, the teacher is talking about branches. Is this a foreshadowing about the branches of time like splitting out and branching out? When Charlotte mentions some birds from 1986 and 2019, how they were getting through the cave, they were later confirmed as radiation spots. So yeah, that was just my theory, basically saying that obviously the birds are potentially coming through from 86 to 2019 via the time machine. Oh, this is another one that I completely I at the time I forgot, so I just assumed what I thought was right. But the red string that Jonas has, I thought was on Mikkel's bike, because for some reason I thought Mikkel was on his bike in episode 1 when he went missing, but I can't remember now. Anyway, I realised that I was heavily wrong on that. I thought the red rope Jonas had was from Mikkel, but it was from future Jonas that tied it to 2019 Jonas's bike whilst he was in the cave. He gave himself the rope, basically. Old Helge tells... Oh, so there's a policeman, I can't remember his name. I think it was Waller. I don't know, but I don't want to confirm that. So it's the guy with the eye patch, the guy that works at the police station, who I later think is an undercover agent, but I just call him eye patch policeman for now. Old Helge tells eye patch policeman it has to stop. Is he on about Noah giving Elizabeth the gold watch to Charlotte? He confirms Noah. So yeah, he's then also repeating himself from the beginning of the episode that he has to stop. And then obviously I mentioned the gold watch that Noah gave to not Charlotte, but he gave to Elizabeth to give to Charlotte. There's another theory behind Noah and Charlotte, which I'll get to later on. Why is Helge making the acorn figurines to leave at the crime scene, like the red string coins? So that was it. That was another question I had. Obviously, Helge makes these little figurines because obviously it's got the acorn body on a thing, and he seems to be leaving them around the bodies as if they're like a serial unalive, or you know, like when people are unalived and there's things left as like a memento. Why are they both left on the bodies or around the crime scene? Episode 5. Why did Noah contact Bartos through Eric's burner phone? He later has a deal Is he going to do something to Regina or Claudia? In episode 9, Claudia gets somebody to make time machine. Is Noah and Claudia against each other? So this is what I was mentioning earlier about, is there a faction? There is later at one point where future Jonas says to the guy who makes the time travel machine, he wants to stop like the whole time travel, he wants to just stop everything. And then obviously we've got Noah, who believes that he's building an ark, later reveals that he doesn't actually believe that there is a god. And then there's Claudia that gives, when I mentioned obviously the guy who makes the time machine, he didn't make it out of his own free will. He was given the blueprints by Claudia. First, I originally did say, did he contact Bartos through Eric's burner drug phone because he wanted to use Bartos to get to Regina, because obviously he knows that Regina is Claudia's daughter. Charlotte mentioned, this was a bit about Charlotte and Noah that I was mentioned earlier. Charlotte mentioned her grandfather was obsessed with the space stuff, and by that I mean like the 33 years, the space and time, like the planets being in the exact rotation and then reset every 33 years. Noah previously gave Elizabeth the watch to return to Charlotte. Is Noah Charlotte's grandfather? Then I contradicted myself by thinking, well, Charlotte was asking Elizabeth when she went missing and then came back on that one episode to describe who she saw in the forest, Noah, and obviously she mentioned like the top hat and everything. Maybe Charlotte has just never met Noah. We don't know about Charlotte's parents yet. It's just another theory. Martha mentions in the play, before the flood, it was different. Demons, all from the underworld. A thread like blood cleaves together all their deeds. Is this insinuating Noah wants to change the world, and says in episode 9 that there's no god, so he wants to cleanse the world and control it? And he does actually say in episode 9 that there's a bit of control and there's no god and everything. So I feel like that play that Martha was in was kind of giving a backstory to the whole heaven and hell, demons and angels and stuff, and that Noah claims to be a priest or a father, daddy, a ripped daddy. Yeah, so Noah's not actually a good guy by the look of it. He's a guy with weird intentions. What made Regina scream in 86 when tied to the tree by the cave entrance? Because there was that very loud noise. Obviously Ulrich and Katerina had tied her to the tree. Even Katerina later said in an argument between the two that she didn't plan on leaving Regina tied to the tree all night. We never found out what made Regina scream. Ulrich's mother, I keep forgetting Ulrich's mother's name, so I'm just referring her to Ulrich's mother. Mentioned Tront's affair and how he was absent the night Mads went missing. She also mentioned that he had had more than one affair. We know that the affair was with Claudia, but then also she's just mentioned that there was another affair, so who else has Tront been sleeping with? The only weird connection that I've seen so far is Peter. There was that episode where Tront and Peter was in the... I'm going to refer it to the bomb shelter. It's that shelter that's next to Helge's wooden cabin in the forest. We did find out at one point as well, Franziska, she mentioned something to Magnus, I think it was, about how her mother and father, like Charlotte and Peter, had not slept in the same bed. Obviously we found out that it was a year since Peter had slept with that person that was in the caravan on that car park, a night entertainer. I don't know what the correct terminology for people that do that stuff is, so I don't want to be rude, so just people that have fun in the night time. We learned that Peter doesn't actually like women. Is there some weird connect... Like, this is just another complete random question, but was Tront sleeping with Peter? Like, is there a I don't know. I got it wrong. Mads off... So I said, I think it would have been in this episode that I'd said it. I thought that Regina had taken Mads through the forest, and I made some assumption at one point and said, did Regina take Mads through the forest and then to the power plant as a FU because Claudia had been sleeping with Tront, so Regina wanted to take something from Tront, as in Mads. But I got it wrong, and we find this out in a later episode that obviously Ulrich and Katerina are very horrible to Regina in the forest in a future episode. So she mentions that Regina was then too scared to walk through the forest by herself, so Mads, being such a kind soul that obviously Regina mentions, he offers to take her through the forest, like walk her through the forest, so she's not alone. Episode 7 opens up with the kid Helge waking up in the bomb shelter. But I thought whoever was taking the kids at the time had tried to take Helge as a kid, and they'd failed, which is why he got blood all over his face. We didn't know at the time, but the kid Helge waking up in 53 was after Ulrich had taken him into the bomb shelter after unaliving him in episode 8. I didn't put together that the plant chips Charlotte found in the cave are from the barrels Alexander asked Jurgen to be moved while the cops were like hanging around. We now understand why Helge was scared of Ulrich as he remembered him being unalived in 53 by Ulrich. You know, when Ulrich had gone to visit Helge in the care home. Katarina mentioned in 2019 that her family is full of, quoting, assholes. She then later mentioned in episode 8 or 9, I can't remember which one it was. I literally wrote episode 8 or 9 because I couldn't remember at the time. Her mother was the one that gave her the bruises. This was the fight between with Ulrich and Katarina in the forest, who then goes to, like, Katarina goes to fight Regina. Because I always said, especially after, obviously, Hannah dobbed Ulrich in as, like, I said, if he didn't do that, then why has she got bruises? Like, where's the bruises come from? And obviously, we learned that Katarina's mother did horrible things to her. Episode 8, literally one point, like I said, I was falling asleep at this point. Helge's mother in 1953 only told him to take off his clothes because he was dirty, and he'd mentioned that he'd been at the construction site. She wasn't doing it to be horrible, although she did go about it, like, telling him in a horrible way. I'm a bit questioning about that because I said that she wasn't actually doing it to be horrible, but then I'll get back to that again in a minute. Episode 9, Mr. Carmwald tells Egon in 1953 that the Burns child, Helge, is missing. This tells us that the connection from 1986 Egon had, he knew Ines' father, so the connection is what I missed earlier. Trant's mother mentioned to Claudia's mother that her husband used to be a priest. He also was a horrible man. Was he doing horrible things to Trant, which was obviously proven on the arm, you know, with the cigarette burns? And did maybe Noah get involved to remove him to take his place as priest? Did Noah orchestrate something to help Trant's mother get rid of Trant's father? But then there's also, I noticed that there's a spark between Trant's mother, Ulrich's grandmother, and then Claudia's mother. There was a bit of a spark when they was like making the bed and everything. Trant's mother tried to give Claudia's mother the dress. So I feel like there's a bit of a love connection, not love, but like a weird connection between the two of them there. So did maybe, I don't want to presume because it's like one of the worst things you can do is presume someone's sexuality. But in this case, was Trant's mother interested in women? She could still be interested in men, or just not interested in anybody at all, which is everything is acceptable. But this is just another theory. Did Trant's mother try and act on the feelings that she had for potentially women, and Trant's father found out, so then she unalived him to keep herself and Trant safe? I don't know, because again, thinking about it, this is the 50s. I know in certain countries it's still illegal and it is punishable by unaliving. To this day, in 2026, to be LGBT, can't even imagine how bad it was in 53. Helge's mother mentions that she didn't want to have Helge. And this is, so somebody obviously mentioned, obviously in the comments when I got it wrong, about when Regina was telling Martha and Magnus about Catalina in the past, and turned around and says, like, show them who their real mother is. I took it out of context of thinking that she literally meant tell them who their real mother is. I can't hear the tone of how they're saying things, so I'm likely to get stuff wrong. Don't know if the tone was wrong, so I could be wrong here. Helge's mother, I can't remember who she was talking to, but she says that Helge's mother mentioned that she didn't want to have Helge and wished bad things on him before he was even born. And then it also, this is a bit that I don't know the context of, it also may not be Burns' child. She mentioned that it wasn't made out of love. Did she have an affair with somebody? The blood in the bomb shelter Noah was scrubbing up could have been from where Helge in 1953 was dumped. The incident that connected the wormhole happened in 1986, so it was burned that had told. So obviously we had, when Claudia was like on her first day when she took over as like the person in charge, there was that woman that gave her the booklet thing with data, and the data was incorrect. Well, she thought it was incorrect, and then obviously we later see that Bernd had done a cover-up on, there was a slight explosion. Was the incident that happened on that specific floor. Future Jonas mentioned that the wormhole connected through to the power plant via some sort of like explosion or big event thing. Magnus gave Franziska her necklace back from finding it under the bridge pass where there were condom wrappers all over the floor. Who else is Franziska sleeping with? That's not a question that you're supposed to ask people, like, who are you sleeping with? But in the context of that portrait, that family, well, not the family, but like, you know, in Claudia's, I think it was Claudia's house, or it might have been on the wall in the hotel where Future Jonas was. We've got the wall of everybody's portraits with the strings and connections. Franziska had a empty portrait below her, meaning that she got a child. I think that is it, guys. What turned out was what was supposed to be a 5-minute video is now 44 minutes, so hopefully I'll cut this down. I hope you've enjoyed this little recap. Again, don't forget, now is your time to put in the comments below any other things that I have missed that I will need to know of to help in episode 10. No spoilers for episode 10. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Link to the Patreon is down below, and I will see you on Friday with the final. Bye!